to get President Bush impeached over the Iraq War.
The United States House of Representatives has a constitutional duty to investigate fully and comprehensively.
But at the University of Michigan, the chief computer scientist behind the discovery of these alleged voting oddities seems to be on a different page. J. Alex Halderman is concerned about the risk of American elections being hacked. He talked about it on C-SPAN before this vote.
A realistic attack on the election is probably going to be homing in on whichever states end up having the closest margins.
But he wants an investigation because he thinks any questions about voting security ought to be addressed. Not because he's convinced it would necessarily change the result, nor prove anyone tried to rig the vote. He's posted online, quote, "Were this year's deviations from pre-election polls the result of a cyber attack? Probably not. I believe the most likely explanation is that the polls were systematically wrong." As for election officials, some certainly went into the balloting pretty confident.
I could set one of these machines in the middle of Red Square in Moscow, and the Russians couldn't hack into it.
We reached out to the folks behind this effort. They don't really want to talk about it more in case there is legal action, but the Clinton camp has shown very little interest in pursuing it. The White House is focused on a smooth transition to the Trump administration, and that likely means this political conspiracy theory will just drift off into the electoral wilderness. Tom Foreman, CNN, Washington.
Let's bring back in Kate Andrews now to find out exactly where things go from here. I should point out that you are a Republican abroad, not necessarily a Republican that supports Donald Trump, as you made clear here on CNN at various surprises. But when it comes to the possibility of a recount here, Jill Stein says she's raised the money to recount the votes in 3 key swing states that really swung the election. Do you think that there should be a recount? Will it go anywhere?
If they've raised the money and they want to push forward with it, if anything, I think it will just solidify the fact that Donald Trump has outright, fair and fair, won this election. I would note that Donald Trump got a lot of criticism before the election results, saying that he was going to contest the verdict, and now here we see the left, especially the far left, the Green Party, contesting the verdict. I'll hand it to Hillary Clinton that she has not been part of this rhetoric. She is not, as the candidate, come out and said that she wants to try to question this democratic process. I think she's, really been appropriate in this scenario, but people are upset at the moment, and it makes sense why this is happening.
So there's no way that this is Al Gore versus George W. Bush circa 2000?
Well, I think people would like to pretend that it is and that it is that close, but still the numbers don't seem to be adding up. I know that not everyone has called Michigan, but Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are clear wins for Donald Trump, and that takes him to far over the point he needed to win in the Electoral College.
That's the other thing I was going to come to. So we now have the tally that is finally emerging for the proportional vote. And Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote, didn't she? Again, this raises issues with the system of the Electoral College and the popular vote in America. But then again, nobody has the incentive to change that, do they?
No, and I actually don't think deep down that they want to. The Electoral College is there to make sure that different parts of a very large country are well represented. People in California and people in Wisconsin don't always see eye to eye, and both need to be represented. It does flag up a real issue for the Republican Party, though, going into the future. The Republican Party is struggling to win the popular vote with George Bush in 2000 and also now in 2016. They can only play that game for so long, so they're going to need to start appealing especially to more minorities and Hispanics in the future. Otherwise, they're going to continue to lose the electoral vote in the future as well.
Kate Andrews, thank you very much for coming on the show to talk about that. Well, we'll stay with politics after the break. The former British Deputy Prime Minister gives me a scathing view of today's state of affairs in the political world. Stay tuned for my interview with Nick Clegg about Brexit, Trump, and the so-called men of the people.